everybody. Welcome to my podcast. Rachel Paling here, and today I am delighted to be speaking with Steve Flinders. And Steve is a marvellous professional in the coaching world, and I'd love you, Steve, to say hello to everybody and give everybody a little bit your background.
Hello, everybody. My name's Steve Flinders. I live in Malta. After spending 20 years in the UK, co-running a training company there, and before that, living in Paris and various other places. I have a background in professional language training, but I also do a certain amount of freelance journalism and consultancy. And latterly, before I left my full-time training position in York in the UK, I did a training course to become a qualified coach. So I now have an international leadership and management level 7 qualification in executive mentoring and coaching. And I love coaching, writing and teaching. And it's quite interesting to think about the relationships between the three of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you must also find there's quite a lot of synergies and fascinating connections between all. Is that right?
Yeah, very much so. I think that a lot of language training involves coaching techniques, and I think a lot of language trainers are doing a lot of coaching without really realizing what they're doing. I mean, I think when we start talking about coaching, and I used to train line managers in companies how to adopt a more coaching approach to being a boss. I think we start with the basic question of telling and asking. How much time do you spend in your job telling, and how much time do you spend asking? Of course, a lot of people have never thought about that question, and they are sometimes shocked by the answer. Yep. And if a boss decides or realizes that he's been or she's been spending 70 or 80% of their time telling people what to do, rather than asking those people what they think is the best thing to do, then they start beginning to see that maybe there's another approach to the way they manage. And it's exactly the same with teaching. A lot of teachers traditionally have told their students what to do. And by thinking about that question, they can start maybe increasing the amount of asking. And one of the things they can begin to ask about is what the objectives of the learner are in the classroom and why they're doing a course and so on.
And interestingly, you and I were speaking about this before, that, teachers are intuitively shifting. What would you say are the poignant points that you're noticing in the language training field at the moment?
Well, I think that a lot of language teachers, and that's not just teachers of professional and business English, but teachers of general English as well, are first of all addressing this question of putting the learner at the center of the learning process. I mean, learner training is nothing new, but maybe 20 or 30 years ago it was a bit marginal, and I think it's now become mainstream. And also, as we were discussing earlier, learners are more sophisticated. They have not been brought up with very conservative methodologies in the secondary schools like their parents' generation. And they also have more sources for learning the language that they want to learn. So for all those reasons, the environment, the learning environment in the classroom is much more complex. And it's important for teachers and learners to navigate away through this complexity and to negotiate a clear understanding of what people are going to do in the classroom and why.
Yes. So what would you say language coaching is?
Well, Well, I'm a little bit, as you know, I'm a little bit hesitant about the phrase, the label language coaching. So maybe it's a little bit pedantic, but there is an interesting coach, Michelle Hunter, who's working in southern Germany, who talks about a coaching style of teaching. And I think I prefer that phrase, a coaching style of teaching. And what does that mean exactly? I think it means, first of all, encouraging learners to think about, what their objectives are going to be for their learning, and secondly, how they learn and how they learn best. In my experience in language training still, mainly with business people, if you ask a learner at the beginning of a language course what his or her objectives are, they're very often very, very unclear about what those objectives are. So I think it's really important to spend time helping learners to define those objectives and also to keep monitoring what those objectives are, because they're going to change during the period of the course.
Absolutely.
And then secondly, thinking about learning and how they learn. People are quite unaware of differences of learning style, particularly with regard to language, I think, between each other. So I think it's really important to spend time on that. So I think altogether, when I'm doing a training course, I think I probably spend 25% or 30% of my time talking about this, asking questions, encouraging the learner to think about what his or her targets are, how she or he is going to reach them, and what the best learning style to reach those objectives would be.
Right.
And some people are quite shocked about that because they're asking whether they're getting value for money. But I think actually it's a really useful long-term investment to do that.
Absolutely. And in fact, you're reminding me now, very much the trend, with neuroscience and everything is learning how to learn.
Right.
And that is the secret to learn faster and more efficiently for each and every one of us, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I think we're probably just on the verge of a real learning revolution. I mean, it's been hinted at quite a lot in the last 10 or 20 years, but I think a lot of the stuff that's been taught so far about left brain and right brain thinking and so on has been extremely simplistic. But my limited understanding of neurology is that there are really incredible breakthroughs in our understanding about the way the brain works now, and we're going to see some really dramatic changes in the next 10 or 20 years in our understanding of all this, and hopefully we'll be able to import this understanding into the classroom as well.
Well, that's exactly what we are doing with Neurolanguage coaching. So we are bringing the neuroscience in practical terms, and we're having some amazing breakthroughs, with people who are learning much quicker than ever before. And actually, Michelle and I were talking. Michelle and I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and yes, Michelle was talking about the coaching style. And I do agree, it is that difference of how we deliver, and making it even from our perspective into a brain-friendly style, so that we are helping the brain to stay calm in the right place with the right chemistry, and then, as you say, getting people into identifying how they learn, because we're all different.
Yeah, I think actually that point about calm and happiness and relaxation is a pretty important one. I mean, when we ran our business in York Associates, we always tried to create a welcoming and friendly atmosphere, because people get very stressed about learning a language. Very often they need to improve their language, or they think they need to improve a language for their jobs and so on. They're stressed because of their experiences in secondary schools some years ago and so on. Yeah. And if you put somebody at their ease and make them feel good about what they can do rather than bad about what they can't do, and make them see, that actually they can do a lot more than they thought they could do very often, then I think, that kind of positive thinking and that kind of relaxed approach can be really, really helpful to a lot of people.
Yes.
A lot of people, have psychological issues rather than kind of formal technical or mechanical language learning issues, I think.
Yeah, the emotional blocks that we've all had with language. I know I've had them when I started with all my languages. So, yes.
Right.
Steve.
Well, all your languages, how many languages do you speak?
At the moment, I'm up to Spanish, French, Italian, Catalan because I live there and I'm quite good with it when I'm there, but not when I'm not there. German, and I'm just starting with Russian. So that's my next challenge, where I'm sure I'll have some emotional blockages there. So yes.
Different emotional blockages for different languages. Well, that's very impressive, because I only speak one foreign language, which is French. So maybe I really need to do more practicing what I preach when I talk about this kind of thing.
Well, we're all on that pathway now of developing how each and every one of us learn, so maybe I can come into my Russian and you can come into some of the other languages too. So, but you're on Malta, so interesting language that they speak there as well, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really difficult. I'm afraid I've copped out of learning Maltese for the time being. It's an Arab-based language, yes. So I'm sort of cheating and trying to concentrate on French and Italian.
Yes. Well, Steve, super to hear you, and super to hear with your experience, this angle that you also bring in, because I do think it's important that people start to understand what we are doing with coaching. You with your experience as an executive coach, and also bringing in the style. And I do agree with you, it is that style more than anything else. Rather than helping people with life goals, we are there helping them with language goals. And it's the principles, the models from coaching which can help enhance the learning process.
Absolutely. Well, if I could just close by doing a plug. German listeners to your podcast will be familiar with a magazine called Business Spotlight. And in the issue coming out in February 2019, there's going to be an article which I've written, which introduces people to, coaching in general, coaching for beginners. And inside the article, of course, is going to be an interview with Rachel Paling about language coaching. So people will be able to read this article and read more about coaching and about language coaching.
Steve, thank you very much for that. And yes, I think I'll be looking forward to get that business spotlight as well in February too. So thank you very, very much. And
pleasure. Thanks for asking me. Bye, Rachel.
I will close this podcast, everybody, by saying watch this space, because we have another wonderful expert from the language field coming in for the next podcast about what is language coaching. Bye-bye.